Our manga kicks off in the fancy royal castle, which at first glance has this low-key creepy vibe because of its humble darkness. Right there, this dude rolls up with mad arrogance looking for who I'm guessing is our main girl. She's a blonde named Tatiana, and this guy's acting all desperate like he can't wait for her to come out and meet him. So he talks to his butler, who tells him the lady just showed up to see him and went straight into his office. It's basically a room that breaks the castle's rules, and right after this handsome dude starts sprinting like crazy until he reaches Tatiana, who shines bright like sun rays. A blonde who could steal any heart at first glance, but she's not there for any lovey-dovey stuff. Nah, she wants to know how she can help this guy. Turns out he's super curious, cause he got a request from Tatiana to visit her ASAP, and it's cause she needs to ask him something big. The main girl shocks everyone by telling this dude holding a drink in her hand to please marry her. The thing is, this guy in black wasn't feeling the proposal at all, and inside he's freaking out, thinking he didn't expect this kind of offer since a while back. He was into Tatiana, but now he's over it, so she's off his radar. He straight up says he never felt love for Tatiana, just wanted to use her hot body. Cause seeing her made him want to hit it raw, but even though she acted all wild, he'd rather not read too deep into that. We're all hyped to dive deep into this story, and I invite you all to keep watching, cause we'll meet leads with mad unique vibes. And even if the plot sounds kinda cliche, this manga's got some fresh twists, starting with one right now. So what's the marriage proposal about? Word is in the Atlas Duchy before all this went down. People were saying the Duke was gonna propose to the continent's most beautiful woman. But everything was handled through talks between the Empress and the Countess, and for that the Duke threw a big banquet for the lady's 21st birthday. All this was gossip in the Empire. Apparently they were all talking about Miss Tatiana, and every rumor was tied to a supposed marriage proposal. They said the Duke of Atlas was ready to drop all his cash to lock down Miss Tatiana. The biggest reason everyone called her the living doll. Her beauty captivated anyone, making it impossible not to see her as a trophy for any guy. But the main girl had a superpower. She heard everything. Deep down she wasn't worried about the rumors flying around her. Suddenly she runs into her older sister, who's also pretty but not as much as Tatiana. Her sister boosts her spirits. This girl was the Viscount's first daughter, and she tells Tatiana that her brother-in-law got her a sapphire as a gift. But their sister talk gets cut off when their mom shows up to lay down the law, saying men don't have time to waste visiting women. In this society, when men had free time, they talked business or politics. The last thing they wanted was drama with women. This rich lady with attitude is Larissa Lauren de Cartier, aka the boss lady, and what she cared about was telling her daughter she busted her ass for the banquet. Remember, I already said the banquet was for Tatiana's 21st birthday. Larissa treated her youngest like a prized object, like a business deal to boost the family's status. She didn't want her to be like her older sister, who wasted her beauty and youth, but here no one's thinking about what Tatiana feels. Instead, it's all about the family's interests through Tatiana's looks. The boss lady tells Tatiana the Empress sent an engagement ring, a diamond weighing over 100 carats. The deal is the Empress is also looking out for her family's interests and needs this marriage to go down. Of course, for political reasons, Tatiana seems not to care about the issue and tells her mom that she'll surprise her as much as possible. At first glance, Tatiana looked excited and innocent enough to bring tears to your eyes. But there's one thing the main girl knows for sure in the society she lives in: you gotta let yourself get played even if you're aware of it. What this poor lady's trying to say is she knows she's being used as a transaction, but she'd rather play dumb while cooking up a life plan. The social pressure Tatiana felt was seriously next level. Everyone around her was way too obsessed with her beauty, and she couldn't walk around chill without feeling all eyes on her. Unlike other women who weren't aristocrats, the main girl didn't have to deal with being called not high society. Like that blue-haired chick who got judged for being a pleb, but she didn't care cause she made a living as a designer. And at the end of the day, what matters is what you do to get ahead. That was Tatiana's sign of respect. She thinks it's no crime to be a pleb, but has to head up to the second floor to rest, and while climbing, she's thinking about this dude who really intrigues her, a red-eyed eyeblinder known as Cain, but the main girl doesn't spill more on him. She just thinks about her engagement and the 100-carat diamond ring. Deep down she feels a heavy weight cause her engagement is a huge burden. She doesn't know if all fiancés feel this way, but being engaged gives her mad anxiety. The worst part is that the Duke, who popped the question, is a total damn bastard. He's banging every chick he can find, and doesn't even care about the engagement cause he sees Tatiana as just a doll who can't think for herself. He doesn't mind banging that woman in the same room where he might do the same to his wife later. Fidelity, nah, he just wants to enjoy every moment with his side chicks. But this time Tatiana was done. She couldn't stand him disrespecting her like that, and when she heard those moans, she busted open the door and caught that steamy scene. Her beauty lit up the whole room, and the cheating lovebirds froze seeing Tatiana right in front of them. But diving into the main girl's thoughts, she's thinking that years ago, when her second brother-in-law had an affair, her older sister was tearing her hair out, but their mom, playing head of the house, calmed her down, saying men can cheat but so can women, cause she's all about gender equality. Even though this was a pretty old-timey era, women wanted to show their worth and not be like in most stories, submissive, putting up with bullshit. The boss lady said if a man cheats, a woman can too, but she's gotta think real hard. Cause she's got this open way of calculating stuff. What she should do is act calculating who's got more to gain or lose. That means when a woman gets caught cheating, she can lose everything. Cause that's how politics worked in that society. Seeing that Tatiana stood in front of the two lovers and didn't do what anyone full of rage would dare to do, she didn't even get close to mess with them. Instead, she told them to keep their voices down, 'cause she didn't want everyone else to find out about this madness. Tatiana took a deep breath to think about what to do next. The first option was to kick them out and humiliate them in front of everyone, but that wouldn't help her. Since rumors would spread like wildfire, causing a huge scandal on her birthday no less, she never imagined she'd have the worst birthday ever. The main girl knows this dude is the type of guy who'll always do that kind of stuff. He loves living surrounded by women and flexing that he can handle them all. Plus, Tatiana never thought all this would go down on her engagement day. This dumbass, seeing how calm Tatiana was in front of them, started talking cause he was scared now. He tried explaining to Tatiana she was seeing things wrong and didn't want a scandal. Tatiana had never seen him so nervous. And the craziest part, the main girl told him she was gonna leave the room so the Duke, she would keep doing what she was doing, and after that she'd listen to whatever they wanted to talk about. She just asked him to please never call her by her name again. This dude was straight up scared, cause he thought his engagement was totally screwed. The main girl dips, telling both of them what just went down was straight disrespect. In the main girl's favor, since now she owes him nothing for acting reckless, he ended up breaking the terms of the deal. Like the song says, neither owe me nor do I owe you. That was her epic exit. Shining as always, those two looked like eels in the desert. Suddenly, when the main girl left that room, she ran into two of her twin sisters cause, yeah fam, that lady had more kids than a banana tree. The main girl told her sisters if they wanted to learn about hookups, they could peek into the room and even spread the word to others. Obviously, she said this all sarcastically, cause the sisters were asking about her broken engagement with the Duke, and those nosy girls were eavesdropping outside on the whole story, and the main girl just asked them to tell their mom she'd be staying away from the mansion floors, needed to chill after all the drama. When she got to that room, she saw nothing. Thinking she'd soon have a charity event and to keep up appearances, she'd have to sit next to the Duke, cause that's what her mom suggested. The thing is, it was already her turn to get married. 4 years had passed since her older sis tied the knot. At first she liked the idea of marrying a Duke cause that's what the boss lady wanted. But she had no clue she'd end up with such a filthy Duke, and she followed her mom's orders cause she was a broke widow. Unlucky, no cash, and with 5 daughters, so as they grew up, her gorgeous daughters, who looked just like her, became a major asset over the last 17 years. It all started with her oldest daughter Anastasia marrying the foreign minister Count von Berlin. Then came her daughter Regina, who also married a rich dude, and after 2 solid marriages for her daughters, she kept using the same playbook. The third daughter won the heart of the Marquis, who took over the justice ministry. It was the story of 2 people who met by chance at an opera. Then with Vivian and her twin Catalina, all Larissa had to do was pick from a flood of proposals. And after 20 years, Larissa the boss lady became a high society rep. Now the last daughter left single was Tatiana, and she had to finish what Larissa started. For the boss lady, explaining to her daughters that money, power, and family were everything became a priority, so she couldn't stop thinking that Tatiana had to carry on her legacy and become the Duke's woman. That's why they pulled all the strings to get the Duke Atlas to notice Tatiana, cause the Duke's fam is the most powerful. Among the 3 only Dukes in the Empire, there's the Emperor's family, who owns the Imperial Palace now. Then there's the Emperor's nephew and a young Duke boss, and that was the one in engagement talks. He was the best catch, young, handsome, and ambitious. Even her older sisters, who at first refused, willingly handed over riches and personal connections, so Tatiana, her sis, could seal the deal. After just 2 months of negotiations with the Empress, Tatiana got a 100-carat diamond ring for her 21st birthday. That's when everything fell apart. Cause the shameless bastard was messing around with a side chick. This stressed the main girl big time, cause she ain't about being submissive. Plus, having disrespect thrown in her face was something she couldn't forgive, and she felt if this got out, it'd cause a nasty scandal. And suddenly, while thinking all this, someone walked into her room. There was her mom with 2 sisters screaming like crazy, wanting to know if her little adorable transaction girl was okay. The main girl told her she wasn't feeling well and didn't want to be there. She started spilling everything to her mom cause she couldn't hide the situation, and mentioned that when she was passing by the library, she heard a woman moaning with pleasure, which sparked her curiosity. And when she saw it was her future husband tickling her younger head, the lady looked relaxed because she seemed to expect this kind of situation, while Tatiana tells her that the Duke should be grateful she didn't ruin everything at that moment. Plus, she can't be the other woman who's always ignored. It's disrespectful to her dignity as a woman. Although I thought the lady would act differently, she seems like she's backing her daughter. Don't forget, appearances can be deceiving, just like her sisters who act all supportive about what Tatiana's going through. The lady left and decided to have tea with her other daughter, and they talked about what was happening, both worried by Tatiana's expression, thinking everything that happened was an insult to the family. Here's the thing, the lady thinks she only raised Tatiana to be a pretty doll, so she thought the Duke would love her and wouldn't dare cheat on her. On the other hand, the main girl stayed in the room with the twin sisters, and those nosy bros told Tatiana that the Duke rushed out of the palace, and no wonder after everything the main girl told him so calmly and decently. The least he could do was bounce. Analyzing the sitch, the main girl wished she was a jewel, wrapped in her mom's arms, but still she doesn't want to see that dude again because just the thought makes her want to puke. From the start she knew the Duke wouldn't be the perfect husband, but her mom kept pushing her to listen, cause she always said all men cheat, but at least this guy was the best catch to marry, so she wouldn't starve. And even though she felt their relationship wouldn't be all lovey-dovey, she at least hoped for mutual respect. But she knows this ain't no fairy tale. So even if they could have lived as a couple, she feels she was hella greedy thinking she'd earn his respect. Her sisters gave her moral support so she could chill and rest, since the lady's gonna meet with the Empress soon and fix all this mess. Despite the pep talk, the main girl wasn't feeling too hyped. Like her sister said, the gorgeous lady went to meet the empress, and these two started talking in metaphors. 'Cause honestly, I didn't catch a damn thing, but what I did catch from their evil stares was that neither was cool with the other's presence. And the lady mentioned something about the duke which the empress took as disrespect, like a straight-up insult. Even though the lady denies it and apologizes, she makes it clear that dude broke the rules of their engagement, making it clear they had to cancel the marriage or else pay a ton of cash to settle it. The empress couldn't believe the lady dared to cancel the wedding, but a promise is a promise. And the dude took it lightly, totally ignoring the rules of the game. Because of that, everything went to hell. So that's how the lady left, cause there was nothing left to say. But before she bounced, the empress wasn't gonna let herself look bad in front of Larissa and dropped the bombshell news. That news was about Duke Atlas's succession, though Larissa didn't care about that. Instead, she told something that made the empress's eyes pop, saying the heir prince had returned to the territory, so what the empress said about the succession seemed impossible. It was like a threat to the empress. She also said that dude was famous for his gorgeous red eyes. That lady almost farted from the shock of the bombshell. She just got. Now the lady knows the prince really arrived in the territory. The lady knows all this cause she heard it from her son-in-law, the marquis. Since he's someone with political power, he's up to date on national and foreign affairs, so he's got the latest scoop. Leaving that lady intrigued by the situation, she leaves like a proper lady, but the empress was more intense than an ugly bride and wanted to renegotiate the engagement with Tatiana. In a scene change, we see the waifu chilling with some high society girlfriends talking fashion and dresses while catching up on the latest tea about the relationship one of the counts had, but the main girl didn't really care about that stuff. It was just that her friends kept pushing to talk about it. They were super shady, and on top of that, someone dropped some news that actually seemed important. It was said that in the south, a handsome guy had returned from the battlefield and he was Eliana's brother, one of the girls there, the brown-haired one exactly. Eliana confirmed the info for real. Her brother had come back safe and sound, and soon there'd be a happiness banquet at the royal palace. All the knights would be there, and it seemed like the main girl knew this dude since she mentioned it had been 3 years already and finally the guy was back. These two had met before, but we don't know why. What's known is that for now, there won't be any more war. They planted the flag at the southernmost edge. Apparently talking about that guy got everyone hyped since he was known as the enemy's blinder, plus he was famous for his insane looks and red eyes. Also, he was a super cool dude, and Eliana confirmed that since she knew him well as her brother, unlike Eliana's other friends. The only one who got close to that guy was Tatiana because she gave him something before he went to battle, which is why her friend group teased her to see if those rumors about him being insanely good looking were true. Besides that, the shady friends started bugging the main girl about her relationship with the duke and the engagement that was already set in stone. Because everyone was gossiping about the main girl's trips to Atlas Castle, like seriously, people here are all about the tea, everyone talks about everyone, and of course the main girl was in the hot seat. Since her mom was the one organizing her sister's weddings and the chats with her friends were seriously getting on her nerves, so she preferred to act super cold. Also, Rebecca, the green-haired one, wanted to know where the main girl's ring was. Since it was such an expensive ring, she should be flexing it everywhere. Rebecca was a bitter loser with life, and when she didn't see it on the main girl's hand, she knew something was off, but the main girl didn't care to keep going over this again and again. She just wanted to let Rebecca draw her own conclusions. After that, the main girl said goodbye to her friends and left with one of her maids. She asked her to send gifts to the guy Hamilton because she knew her friend Eliana liked him and thought it'd be a nice move to send it on her behalf so they'd end up hitting it off or something. As the main girl gave orders to her maid, she noticed some hooded guys nearby. At first she thought they were mercenaries, but step by step, she started noticing the black hair caught her attention. Her heart started racing and she didn't understand the feeling, but it felt like the person calling her was right there. However, he went to other shops like nothing happened. The main girl was super chill, thinking everything was normal, but nope, she had to run into the duke who hadn't seen her in days because he couldn't face her after what he did. That guy also noticed the black-haired presence. Was pretty eye-catching, plus that hood and outfit he wore were next level. Suddenly, that powerful dude showed his face and revealed his red eyes, but not to the main girl or the duke. He was just walking and showing his face. He had one of his subordinates beside him giving orders that the guy didn't know how to follow. Suddenly, people started recognizing the battle guy walking by. That was Cain. People glorified him like a walking god. He was the guy who saved the air and was considered a true war hero. Many thought he deserved to be at the forefront of the Imperial Knights, and while the subordinate's job was to find him a good spot to rest. He'd heard that His Highness the Crown Prince said it'd be fine to stay near the palace, but going to the residences of the richest nobles was a super central zone, so he preferred somewhere far away. He ordered to find the farthest spot from the center. Scene change, we see the main girl still in front of the duke. As far away from the center as possible in a scene change, we see the protagonist still in front of the duke. Mina didn't say a word, which made the duke anxious because he wanted her to explain what the hell she was doing in the center when she called her by name. The protagonist had to put her in her place. Because she already warned her she didn't want to be called by her name, she preferred not to be seen next to her and leave as soon as possible. She knew all the tea would spread fast. Even her friend Rebecca was already watching her from afar. Seeing how she ignored that Duke dude, this guy called the main girl childish, but she was giving him the cold shoulder. And what he wanted was to talk and clear things up. He was flailing like a drowning man. Tatiana wasn't about to waste more time and told him to keep it short. Because honestly, she was tired of wasting time on this lying piece of shit. The thing is, the Duke didn't want the engagement to break off for political reasons. It wasn't in his best interest for that engagement to go down the drain, and he asked the main girl to take the marriage seriously, but it's not her fault. If we break it down, he was the one who cheated. Now he's trying to play the saint, and Tatiana had already made it clear their story was over that day. The main girl firmly told him straight to his face she didn't want to be seen involved with the Duke anymore. This dude was so damn cynical. He was blaming the main girl for kicking out some Natalia, and even though she pretended not to know who Natalia was, he reminded her Natalia was the one caught cheating. Natalia was the other woman. Like, this dude is more pissed about Natalia getting kicked out of the hotel than the engagement breaking off. The craziest part is the main girl didn't even bother kicking Natalia out of the hotel where she was staying. But you can bet her sisters are involved in this. The main girl used this to her advantage, confronting him to say if the Duke was mad because the engagement broke or because his poor side chick got kicked out. The girl wasn't about to waste time on dumb crap, but if it's about the marriage, she made it clear it was all over and about his mistress. She had nothing to do with her getting kicked out. So she washed her hands like Pilate. This dude is mad shameless and tells the main girl he never planned to marry Natalia. He just liked to mess around but actually wanted to be with Tatiana, who has it all in life, is insanely beautiful, and her mom made sure she had a solid social status, but he thinks the main girl can't handle that. He cheated on her. The thing is, cheating is straight up disrespect. That's why Tatiana won't let this dude come and step all over her like that, so he should be more worried that his mistress Natalia won't be accepted in any downtown hotel. And since he looks so worried, Tatiana suggests the best move is for him to take her home. That shameless dude threatened the main girl, saying he'd make her and all her sisters responsible for what happened, and apparently the girl doesn't give a damn. Telling him he should be grateful it all ended peacefully, because if he had been engaged to any of her sisters, any of them would have thrown Natalia in the river. The main girl is way more chill. And the lucky one here is the Duke, because at the end of the day, the main girl never loved him, didn't even find him attractive as a man. And she assures him if she had loved him, they'd have found him floating face down in the river, because she wouldn't have put up with that kind of betrayal from a man she loved. But she doesn't give a damn about him. The only thing she asks is that he never crosses her path again. The girl is so sure of what she did that the last thing she wants is his regret. The thing now is this dude isn't done with the engagement. On the contrary, he's sure the girl will come back to him and drops a hint about who's helping him get this engagement back. And he says, who do you think told him she was downtown? Of course it was the boss lady. No clue what made her change her mind. Maybe it's about the throne succession, but what we do know is the lady is dead set on marrying her daughter to the Duke despite the cheating. Now she's prepping the best wedding dress. Her daughter with the Duke despite the cheating. Now she's prepping the best wedding dress. And wants everything to match the jewels sent by the Empress. When the protagonist found out about all this, she ran back home and caused a huge scene, calling her mom. Obviously, the protagonist was mega pissed, and no cap, she had every right to be, since she thought her mom was backing her up on everything, but turns out they were on totally different pages, each pulling for their own interests. Larissa, of course, wanted to sell her daughter like merchandise and already had the wedding dress ready, perfect for tying the knot with Duke Atlas. For now, what Mina wanted was for her mom to give her an explanation of what was going on, since there were other people outside the family involved. The lady sent them all away because she wasn't about to give them any tea to spill. Left alone with her daughter, Mina started grilling her mom because she wanted answers about what was happening. The boss lady kept insisting everything was already set, and that would be the dress she'd wear on her wedding day, since she'd soon become the Duchess. Tatiana's cold, rage-filled glare showed what she was feeling inside, and she asked her mom straight up if she really wanted her daughter to marry that kind of man. As expected, the answer was yes, which pissed Tatiana off big time. She felt humiliated now, even more than the day she found out about the cheating, and apparently, her mom, who at first sided with her, ended up looking out for herself and didn't give a damn about anything. She was straight up trampling over her daughter, like she always did with her other daughters. Plus, that shameless dude pulled the fruit fantastic right under the protagonist's nose. She couldn't believe her own mom gave him the address to come find her. All along, Tatiana thought her mom always had her daughter's backs, and the lady didn't deny it, saying what she's doing is what's best for her and that everything should go as planned from the start. On the surface, this seemed super unfair to the protagonist, while that lady showed zero compassion or empathy, just throwing out her arguments. She told her Tatiana was the crazy one for barging into that room without knocking, and even so, the Duke forgave her madness. She suggested she should be grateful and go through with the engagement. Larissa told her to stop being so immature and stupid, because from now on she'd be sitting in a spot where every woman in the world would envy her. Then she asked how she could say her mom wasn't doing what's best for her. All that lady wanted for the protagonist was for her to take a break and clear her mind. Now, the protagonist was super rebellious, and even though it's an engagement, she definitely wasn't marrying that Duke. She wasn't about to act like nothing happened or even take that disgusting dude's hand. She didn't even want to look at him because he's a straight-up cynic for trying to get close again. Bottom line, Tatiana didn't want to see him again. Didn't care if he crawled 2 blocks on his knees begging for forgiveness. Her decision was made. She wasn't going to take any more insults or disrespect. Larissa was fuming. In that house, everything always went her way because her daughters were her most prized assets, but this time it was slipping out of her control. The lady told her the protagonist didn't even know what an insult was because a real insult is going to bed every night. Crying because your husband's dead and you have no way to feed your daughters, watching them slowly starve to death. Since she felt that insult, she's been focused on turning her daughters into assets. That's why she won't let this crazy girl derail from the path. She told her all the stuff she's had to go through and why she's felt so humiliated. Comparing the two situations and feeling like her daughter hasn't been through anything compared to all she's lived. The only thing she managed to negotiate was that as a reward for what happened that day, the Empress agreed to give her the private palace of Mutant, the warmest place in the whole empire, so it's a good spot to spend the winter. That's why if something similar happens again, like if he cheats again, she doesn't have to cry like a deer with a ton of antlers, but can just go there to rest until she forgives him again. For Mina, this was hitting rock bottom. She asked her mom if she didn't have even a little pride. The lady got so mad she said if she'd had pride. Her mom doesn't even have a bit of pride. The lady got so mad she snapped back that if she had pride, the protagonist wouldn't have been born, and well, the protagonist's other sisters were finding out that their mom had lost it and was already prepping the engagement ceremony. She had all the jewels and diamonds to celebrate like it deserved. Even they thought it was crazy to let Tatiana stay in such a disrespectful engagement. The lady with zero shame tells them she obviously wasn't going to cancel that engagement. Finally, someone's got the protagonist's back, and her sister isn't down with forcing her to do something she doesn't want. She tells the maid to pack all her sister's stuff and take her home because she's getting her the hell out of there. Larissa was mad as hell and confronts her other daughter, thinking the protagonist called just to feel supported and she's not going to let them take her daughter away. Since the older daughter was talking calmly, the lady told her if she hated the Duke's engagement so much, then she better come up with a way better proposal to make him her daughter's husband, or else she should shut her mouth. 'Cause it's damn near impossible to find a man with status and money, and the Duke had both in spades. All the sisters were shook, putting themselves in their sister's shoes, thinking the whole sitch was straight up trash. Their mom had already been blinded by the Duke. Since the lady was so pissed, she made it clear to all her daughters that she did the same with them, so don't think they debuted in high society on their own. She always had her hands behind the scenes. Plus, from the start, the lady knew the Duke was wild with women. And that didn't stop the engagement, so she straight up doesn't give a damn about her daughter's opinions. None of them are worthy enough to give advice. Suddenly, the protagonist snaps back to reality and screams to the sky because she has no clue what's coming next. She overheard everything her mom said with her sisters around, and thought it was so unfair that everyone knew the Duke's womanizing rumors. That was beyond disappointing. Her world was falling apart. She didn't think it was right that everyone knew the truth and kept it from her. Her mom, super cynical, tells her it's not easy for a mother to spill the truth so openly, so it's better to pretend she knows nothing, all to protect the family's money interest. And she told her daughter if she wanted to know more, she was ready to spill the tea. This time, the protagonist wasn't gonna act like the usual dumb girl. She wasn't down to take more humiliation and stood firm with her sisters watching, right in front of her mom telling her she wasn't marrying the Duke. The older sister offered a place to stay, to keep things calm, not wanting this to blow up even bigger. The thing is, the protagonist was way too hurt. All her sisters knew her future husband was cheating, yet they kept that secret. She thought her sisters were different from her mom, but now she sees they're all cut from the same cloth. Finally, her mom confesses the painful truth: Tatiana had to marry the Duke so all her sisters could have a better future. Because once that happened, the oldest daughter would own the Oberdeen house and benefit from the Duke Atlas's influence. Then they could boost their credit ratings with banks and co-ops. Then the twins come into the picture, planning to build a hotel not just in the territory but near the border too. Now it's clear the protagonist is being forced to marry just for the family's wealth and perks. Her mom, calm as ever, says from the start. Tatiana agreed too, just suggesting she think about how she's lived so far, thanks to her oldest sister. Because of that, she owes it to return the favor and help her other sisters too. The sisters begged their mom to shut up and stop tormenting poor Tatiana. This family's skeletons were all out. Everyone's hands were dirty because they were defending those interests, and by marrying that Duke, the whole family name would benefit big time. The matriarch's got the aristocracy in her grip. Deep down, she apologizes to her daughter because she didn't want to do this, but it's too hard to undo everything. If the protagonist backed out of that engagement, everything in that house would go down the drain. And they'd both end up back in the streets starving. Back then, they weren't exactly living their best lives. But now she has to accept that ring, and in a week there's going to be a banquet at the Imperial Palace to celebrate the victory, and they're planning to bring up the wedding issue that day to drop some good news, and if the main girl gets it, she'll have to leave the house and end up on the streets, leaving behind everything Larissa gave her, and that lady has always been by Tatiana's side. She used to say Mina was everything to her even without her dad. She had a mom who could fill that void so she wouldn't feel alone, but as Tatiana grew up, she realized her mom wasn't the saint she always thought she was. But still, Tatiana never hated or felt ashamed of her mom. No matter what people said, and on the contrary, she loved how they dressed her up in fancy dresses and jewels. Even though she got treated well since she was little, she didn't want to follow the legacy of marrying for political or money reasons. However, she always understood that her mom gave birth to 5 daughters and raising them alone was really tough, so she did everything to give them a life full of comforts. Even though she knows what her mom's doing ain't right, it would have still been the best inevitably, so the main girl went to her room to reflect on all her deep sadness. She locked herself in her room for days, and meanwhile the maid came to serve her breakfast looking tired and worn out because she hadn't eaten in days. Tatiana knew she couldn't let herself fall apart. She decided to eat and think of a strategy to get out of this mess. If she cries and gives up, she'll wake up at the banquet doing the opposite of what her heart wants. The girl talks to her maid, saying she's not doing this out of childish rebellion, but rather it's all about dignity. The thing is, her mom's voice haunts her, telling her it's not worth losing everything she has just for pride. She knows her mom too well and knows she won't give up until she reaches her goals. If she goes against her mom's orders, she'll have to go far away or have a better plan deep down. She thinks it would have been better not to know anything and act like nothing happened. Even the maid feels sad hearing the guilt that's crushing this poor girl. She feels so down but is determined not to do it. The worst part is being locked in her room, a prisoner of her own decisions. The only one who had access to her was her maid, and little by little they cut her off from the outside world. Her mom took away her jewels and money, wanting to corner her into making the decision she wanted. The main girl was becoming a simpler woman, and of course, she was accepting herself as a lady who didn't need fancy dresses and jewels to look good now that she took the time to reflect. She realizes she has more than she thought. Now she can think clearly. Scene change. We see the main girl decided to go out into the world, even stepping over her mom. She didn't care about looking simple and different from what she was used to, going out without jewels. She looked more plain but was still beautiful. That's how she got to the museum, wanting to distract herself, but the man there reminded her of her horrible fate. Everyone said the main girl was gonna marry Duke Atlas, but the waifu, being pretty stubborn, refused to accept that fact and said it was just a sad rumor. That dude played along, telling her there are many kinds of rumors in the world, including the one that the Marquis not only liked art but also other hidden things because, well, people, the main girl was visiting that art-obsessed Marquis, and I don't know what the main girl wants to achieve with all this, but she definitely has a plan. The main girl realizes all her accounts were blocked and now she has nothing. The only one she has is the maid who supported her since they locked her up. The saddest part is she can't get help from her sisters and has no other family. Now she's facing her harsh reality. All she can count on are those people who send her letters, often anonymously and, well, talking about many family things. The main girl was there in that art place trying to win over that Marquis because he's always been in love with her, but the girl at that art spot trying to win over that Marquis because he was always in love with the protagonist, but the girl didn't like him at all, and in her desperation she's trying to see if she can ditch that Duke born from hell. The next step in her plan is to hit up the opera to get in touch with some counter. The protagonist hasn't let us know what other plans she's got to escape her horrible fate. All she thinks is that her mom always taught her a woman is just decoration anywhere. In fact, that became the policy her mom drilled into all her daughters. That's why she always got a thorough education. She was schooled in art and history, foreign languages and politics. All that from a young age, though she never actually used any of it. It just stayed forgotten in her head. Still, whatever she learned throughout her life will help her charm any dude. As long as it's not the Duke. The only thing she feels is she shouldn't let greed drive her into marriage. She has to face reality. The protag knows she's the only one stuck in this mess and she's gotta fix it. Plus, she knows that by imperial law, the only way a lady can leave her biological or birth family is by marrying or divorcing. As for the suitors, there'll probably be mad rumors all over the city, so she feels she has to play it flirty so the rumors reach the Duke and serve as an excuse to break things off. She's got hope she might find a good relationship, hopes that someday she'll find a chill, loving family just like she planned. Everything started coming to light. The papers reported the lady had been with some mysterious dude at the opera, then they dropped a doc on the suitors who showed up in a group just to see her. That's how the rumors spread. And the papers asked society who they thought the last Larissa daughter would pick. Of course, just as planned, these rumors reached the Duke, who was losing it, cause he found out the lady had gone to the gallery and then the opera with the Count. The Count was yelling at the protag's mom, and she told him Tatiana was a shallow woman and reminded him it was him who broke off the engagement by cheating right under her nose, and asked why he wanted to marry her daughter. If he's always whining about everything she does and she doesn't even act like the Tatiana she used to be. She just asks him to be patient cause the daughter ain't his yet. The Duke tries to pressure her, saying they gotta act fast or the situation's gonna spiral out of control. The matriarch tells him that for the protag to get it, he has to do things right, but we don't know what she means by that. Cause I'm getting some low-key sarcastic vibes. Scene change, we see the Black Wolf mercs reading the papers and gossiping about the protag. They say the girl's cute, but one of them is pissed cause he doesn't care how pretty she is. He thinks she's a bad woman for what she did to the captain. This has me super curious cause it connects back to the manga's start where she was proposing to the dude. Not sure if it's related, but I think it's all connected. They all started saying Tatiana was a witch and defended Cain to the death. Now, to get some backstory on Cain, the story says Cain worked hard when the crown prince led the conquest war instead of the emperor, but he ran a small mercenary group, a merc who worked as much as he got paid. Still, he knelt before the emperor, offering himself to save the missing crown prince, taking one of his trusted men. The Pumpkinhead, basically, this dude was his right-hand man and told him what was going on. That's why Pumpkinhead knows the whole story. Now, Pumpkinhead was shook hearing all the local news talking about the girl who broke his boss's heart. And not just his boss but his friend too, so before Cain went off to save the crown prince, he wanted to do one thing in case he didn't come back from the war, just dance with the little doll queen. That's why he dared to send a letter to the powerful matriarch who ran some pretty big social circles. That's why that letter sent to Tatiana was received, but the thing is that lady never actually gave the letter to her daughter since obviously it didn't suit her. No money was being offered in exchange, and y'all know this woman runs everything on cash, so she turned that letter into a total joke. Everyone laughed when they read it, especially the future hubby candidates of the little queen. The letter's content made everyone crack up, and one of them said Cain ain't no father or subject. After all that mockery, Cain got even colder than before, and the worst part is he thinks Tatiana had something to do with it. Even though she wasn't directly involved, her family was caught up in it. So the pumpkin-head dude held mad hate for everyone who laughed at the legendary war hero. Even his friends and co-workers tried to explain to this kid to drop the hate against that gorgeous lady. But Cain didn't care. He saw no difference between Tatiana and the Viscountess. To him, they were both mother and daughter. That's why he also started hating that little beauty. Everyone said the mom was a straight-up witch trying to sell her daughter for a higher price to the best bidder. Comparing Cain and the Duke, I'd lean more towards Cain. He might not have the Duke's social status, but he looks way more real than that clown. Back to the main girl, Tatiana's looking stressed. The victory banquet's happening the next night, and luckily the last 3 days went perfectly. Rumors spread just like the waifu wanted, and at this rate she might score a marriage proposal that very night. She was straight up praying to Cupid to send someone worth her time. There were a bunch on the list, each hotter than the last, but the main girl didn't care about social status. As long as it wasn't the Duke, she tried to stay as optimistic as possible. But I don't think she's a Sagittarius, cause she was dead set on none of them falling for her anytime soon. Before the Duke's engagement date, to be honest with herself, she thought about Cain and wished he'd confess to her. Even knowing all the drama, she didn't see it happening, but still believed hope's the last thing to die. That night, with her head spinning full of crazy thoughts, she wondered when was the last time it rained that hard. It took her back to that event in the Central Plaza by the Star River. It was to honor soldiers on the battlefield, and married folks weren't allowed to enter. Out of respect for the soldiers, it was an exclusive event. Only knights and ladies of the duchy could attend, and in that empire it was tradition to tie a ribbon around the tip of each knight's sword. 3 years ago, Tatiana was 18 and single, and her friends kept pushing her to go to that soldier commemoration. They even suggested she tie a ribbon on one of the soldiers. But she wasn't paying attention to that, so she wasn't planning to tie a ribbon on anyone, or so she thought. That day felt weird. The weather was dark, and Tatiana didn't want to mess up her freshly straightened hair with her friends. So they preferred to skip the event, but then they noticed a mysterious guy right in the middle of the plaza standing out. They wondered who that handsome knight was. Eliana thought he looked like a black wolf with a cape and remembered her brother had suggested dressing like that. He was part of the mercenary group that was starting to get known alongside him. Meanwhile, Rebecca was super arrogant and hated that a mercenary was invited to a fancy noble-only event like this. Since the main girl was clued in on this, she told her friends to stop judging people by how they look or dress. Because she knew everyone had to attend this event before heading to the battlefield. That's why it was important for all participants to gather no matter who they were. From the start, the main girl was drawn to that caped man who looked like a black wolf. But everyone around her told her not to pay attention to him, because if her mom found out she was eyeing someone way out of her league, her mom would tear her apart. Eliana offered to take the main girl home to avoid drama, since the main girl's carriage wasn't nearby. The thing is, she chose to wait for her own ride. And I think it's because she had something on her mind. That's when the rain started, and she didn't care about standing there getting soaked with an umbrella while the hooded guy kept catching her eye. So she walked up to him and asked if it was his first time at a high society event. Of course, the hooded guy was Cain. And when the main girl looked him straight in the eye, she noticed his red eyes reminded her of rubies, which really caught her attention. She felt this weird connection with him and decided to hand him her umbrella, telling him to take it because it was gonna rain all night. That dude, like any alpha male, refused to accept help from a lady, and the waifu warned him that if the rain kept up, he'd freeze before getting home. Since he was heading to the battlefield soon, it was best he took care of himself so he wouldn't get sick from the rain. That dude was tougher than a Rolex wouldn't take the main girl's help. Just then her carriage arrived to pick her up. Mina wanted to keep things chill with that random guy, so she closed the umbrella, took off her hair ribbon and handed it to him. Tatiana told him it was her right as a lady, and he couldn't say no. Plus, while they were at the town square where the event was happening, he had to follow the rules, so he couldn't refuse the ribbon. Out of nowhere, he wished her luck and politely said goodbye. Deep down, he was totally smitten by her beauty. The main girl didn't care about getting soaked when she got home, but soon after she found out the real identity of that guy. It was the Black Wolf who went to the battlefield seeking revenge for the Marquis of Targa, and was also the only volunteer offering to find the Crown Prince. The main girl knew the news that apparently he'd sent her a letter asking for a dance, a letter that never made it to her hands, because her mom threw it away. Back in the present, we see the maid telling the main girl that one of the candidates, the Marquis Eberton, just sent a letter basically reminding her they had a date. But he had to apologize because the meeting they planned that day couldn't happen. He was basically ghosting the main girl. She couldn't just sit back because this was part of her plan. And told the maid to get ready because they were heading out. So she went straight to see this Marquis, who was carrying expensive paintings. Tatiana confronted him, asking if that was the real reason he cancelled their date. She was mad as hell, and no wonder this dude was basically ditching her. The guy looked super bummed but was carrying a painting by Ronaldo, painted in year 524 of the imperial calendar. Ronaldo was a painter from the Carmenia court part of the imperial family. Turns out the main girl's mom already had this painting, which means the lady gave this artwork to the Marquis, who was obsessed with art, to keep him away from the main girl. That move worked. The Marquis caved to the boss lady Larissa's demands, and with a pricey piece of art, he stayed away from the main girl. But Tatiana wasn't about to sit back and do nothing, so she went to confront him. He felt he owed the main girl nothing, because he saw her as a liar thanks to rumors spreading that she planned to announce her engagement to the Duke of Atlas at the Imperial Palace banquet the next day. So he didn't want to get caught up in that marriage drama. What sucked was the main girl thought if he had doubts about her intentions, he should have asked her straight up instead of playing dumb and canceling the date. Feels like if he had doubts about her intentions, he should have asked her straight up and not play dumb canceling the date. Through a letter like a total jerk, the protagonist kicked that painting out of pure rage and turned around to leave. Another future suitor was hiding in a warehouse, and another was drunk or totally out of it. The last one ran off in a carriage just to never see Tatiana again. Scared of Larissa, the protagonist basically had no choice. Shit was hitting the fan. Completely crushed, she wandered aimlessly, and all the faith she had was falling apart. Since it was about to rain, the maid went to find the carriage, not wanting the lady to get sick. But the main girl feels like she has nowhere to go back to. The bad part is the carriage was already pulling up. And it wasn't just the driver. Larissa was there to confront her daughter, so now the main girl had double the stress. Because she had to face her mom. That lady wanted to take her daughter home, didn't want her wandering the streets or looking for some cheap husband, and see the boss lady had made sure to ruin all the main girl's plans because she'd taken out all the suitors the bifo. Was so mad she asked Larissa if she was really her mom because lately she'd been acting like her worst enemy. The lady assured her she was her mother and everything she was doing was for her own good because there was no better husband candidate than the Duke of Atlas. Larissa kept brainwashing Tatiana, reminding her the world runs on money and power. The main girl was so disappointed her eyes toward the woman she loved most became sad and dull. She'd realized her mom only cared about money. The old lady told her she had to do what she was suggesting since her sisters followed the path their mom laid out, and thanks to that got money and power, the two most important things in life, because for her money is the start of everything, then comes influence and power to run everything her way. That's why she always got what she wanted. Larissa insisted her biggest favorite treasure was Tatiana. Even the maid was scared of what was going down because Larissa wouldn't stop harassing the main girl. She even dared to threaten her, saying she already had in mind who she'd hurt if the main girl didn't do what she wanted. If the main girl didn't listen, they'd fire her dear maid, the one always looking out for her. Like they say, the dumb ones always catch the blame, even though that trusted maid was hired by the main girl. The monthly pay came from the Viscountess, meaning indirectly she was also her boss and could fire her whenever she wanted. The lady asked her to attend the Imperial Palace banquet wearing the engagement ring, and that way all her problems would be solved. The main girl felt like her mom stabbed her right in the heart. She'd crushed all her dreams just for ambition now. Both the maid and the main girl stood in the rain totally down because they didn't know what their fate would be. Deep down, the main girl knew she had a lot to lose and a lot to protect. But hey, faith is the last thing you lose now. The girl had another plan. She flipped her life around because there was still someone who shouldn't reject her. That's how she sent a telegram to Cain because Cain was her last option at first. When he got the letter, Cain thought it was a war invite, but nah. Everything was chill actually. It was a private proposal he should pay attention to. Turns out that letter contained an urgent visit request from Lady Tatiana. Just like the manga started, and without a second thought, he jumped on his horse, hit the gas on the beast's legs, ran faster than Fast and Furious. That's how that dude remembered what happened a while back when he went to talk to Tatiana to get to know her better. And right when he arrived, there was that stubborn old Larissa. Opposing his arrival, this woman showed pure disdain for strangers coming near her daughter. She was pissed off at this black wolf's presence and tried to provoke him to lose his cool. So this time he wants to come back and meet Tatiana directly without falling for Larissa's provocations. Because unfortunately he's never been able to understand why Larissa publicly humiliated him, and wanted to know if the main girl was involved in this whole situation, so the best move is to talk face to face. That's how in the middle of the rain that dude did everything he could to get to his castle on time, because that's where the date was gonna go down with the waifu. That girl broke through all the security and barged in without asking anyone for permission to see the main girl. The main girl wasn't even bothered by Cain's grand entrance cause she was waiting for him, and that's when she saw those insane red eyes again, but this time he had a hostile vibe, asking why she wanted him to come all the way here. When he had stuff to do with training, he didn't get why the girl went through the trouble of coming to his castle. Tatiana just stared at him for a moment without saying a word. I think something in her heart made her connect with him. And beyond all that, the main girl knows this is her last shot if she doesn't get this dude to marry her. Her mom will get what she wants to marry her off to the nastiest cheater in the empire, the waifu remembered every word her mom said to her, and with that fire heating up the room, she needed to calm Cain down, so he'd understand what she had to say. The main girl told him she really needed his help because Mina wasn't just gonna sit back, while her mom did everything to wreck her future by tying her to a man she straight up despises. She confirmed her mom kicked her out, took away all the riches she was used to living with, but more than that, she was being forced into a miserable life, ready to give up everything from her mom's inheritance and not fight for a single cent. She just needed Cain's help because whether they got married or not, she had to take a different path. Even the Black Wolf didn't get why the Viscountess was doing all this. The answer the main girl gave was brutal. It's all because she realized what her mom really was, a greedy, ambitious woman. That's why the main girl's proposal is to marry Cain, so her mom can't sell her off after she's married. What Cain doesn't get is why she picked him, a no-name nobody. To help her escape her mom, he asks if she sees him as a good marriage option, or if she's just using him like a coupon to break free from the Viscountess's grip. This dude's pride wouldn't let him rest, and he made it clear he wasn't gonna get down on his knees asking for marriage from a girl who once dissed him because he thinks mom and daughter are the same. Even though he's not thrilled the main girl crashed his place, he still wants to hear her out. The thing is, Tatiana was losing hope, telling him her situation was so urgent she didn't even think she was walking into the lion's den. Plus she swore she never meant to ignore or disrespect him. And the simple reason she came to him right then was because she thought he liked her, since he was the only one brave enough to send her an invite to an important ceremony. Even knowing Larissa wouldn't let them be together for that ball, on top of everything the main girl hands him a gold coin, probably the last thing she had in her pocket, paying for the drink she'd just had. To kick off the convo, she said she was paying the price for what she'd been through. Since she usually doesn't drink unless it's with the guy she's gonna marry, that dude was shook, left speechless. The bad news is everything stopped there. Cut to the Imperial Palace where they were prepping the banquet for the honor party. Of course the main girl was asleep. No way she'd get up at 6 a.m. after getting home at midnight. Yeah folks, the main girl came back with her tail between her legs cause she didn't get any good vibes from Cain. That's when her mom and sister were talking about Tatiana's situation. Larissa was super optimistic, telling her daughters she believed Tatiana would do the right thing cause she'd realize her mistakes. She knows the banquet's at night. Was gonna do the right thing because she'd realize her mistakes. She knows the banquet is at night and always starts later than planned. That way, she'll have time to get ready to get to where the story's going. We realize all the characters are flawed and multi-layered. Everyone's moving for their own interests. But personally, I like how the protagonist breaks out of her shell and defines her own worth. She no longer cares about all the riches and high society titles in exchange for loyalty and essential value in her life. No doubt this is a straight-up self-discovery story. Still not sure if the main girl totally flopped her plan, trying to pop the question to Cain. But hey, if you want to know what's next told by the best manga channel, don't forget to follow, smash that like and share. Love y'all so much. Be like Tatiana and keep it real. Loyal to this channel and get this vid to all your homies. Catch you at the next recap. God bless.